Happy New Year's Eve, everyone. We couldn't let this year end without our traditional deep dive into the wild world of markets and crypto.
It's become quite the tradition.
It has, hasn't it? And, like every year, we've got some seriously interesting data to unpack. Tonight's deep dive is going to be based on this awesome New Year's Eve special by this, super insightful crypto influencer.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah. And, they always do such a good job, digging into the numbers and pulling out the really important stuff. So
Yeah, they're great at cutting through the noise and really highlighting those trends that, everyone should be paying attention to.
exactly. So let's get right into it. Big picture. The headline is, crypto had a killer comeback year in 2024.
A real rebound year.
It was.
Yeah.
Total market cap hit, get this, $3.3 trillion.
Wow.
I know, right? And that's during the holiday season. So, typically things slow down a bit, but not this year.
Well, it definitely defied a lot of the predictions. I think a lot of people were, still kind of skeptical after the previous year, but
Right. There was a lot of is crypto dead? Yeah. Talk going around, but I think this pretty much puts that to rest.
for now, yeah, I think so. And of course, Bitcoin was a major driver there, seeing a 122% increase.
Bitcoin, always reliable.
Always a solid performer. But you know what I found really interesting, beyond Bitcoin, was the performance of things like meme coins.
Oh, yeah, those are crazy.
Like Doge, Pepe, even WIF. I mean, those gains they were significant.
Unpredictable, but significant.
Exactly. It's like, throwing darts at a board.
Totally. But then you also have your layer one protocols like Sunni, skyrocketed
Yeah.
442%.
Oh, yes, Sunni was a big one. And then you even had your established players like XRP, seeing a huge jump, 240%.
It's kind of mind-boggling how some of these assets just completely defy expectations.
It really highlights the unpredictable nature of the market, and it's a good reminder that while data can be incredibly useful, you always have to approach investments with a balanced perspective, considering both the potential risks and rewards.
Absolutely. Risk management, never forget that.
Yeah.
So how did crypto stack up against traditional markets? Because that's always a good comparison point.
Always.
Okay, get this. So Bitcoin absolutely crushed it compared to the NASDAQ. NASDAQ was up 30.1%, not bad, fueled largely by AI stocks.
Yeah, AI was huge this year.
It was, but Bitcoin, 124.8% increase. I mean, that's another level.
It really does seem like we're witnessing a growing decoupling of Bitcoin from traditional markets. While macroeconomic factors still play a role, Bitcoin seems to be increasingly, charting its own course.
Yeah, it's becoming its own, distinct asset class, it seems like.
Yeah, and I think that has significant implications for portfolio diversification, moving forward.
For sure. And even gold had a stellar year, up 26.8%, its best performance in 12 years.
Wow.
It actually beat out the S&P 500, which gained 24.2%. The Dow lagged behind with a 13% increase.
Interesting.
But here's something to think about. Small cap stocks, as represented by the Russell 2000, didn't perform as well as some might have anticipated.
Yeah, that kind of suggests a preference for stability over speculative growth during a time of, economic uncertainty.
Right. It seems like investors were gravitating towards those more established assets, the ones perceived as safe havens, like Bitcoin and gold.
And that trend is definitely one to watch closely moving forward.
Absolutely. So what does the future hold for Bitcoin in 2025? Well, our influencer compiled some pretty bold price predictions from some pretty big names in the finance world. Tom Lee, longtime Bitcoin bull from Fundstrat, he's pegging Bitcoin at $250,000 for 2025.
Okay, that's a hefty prediction.
It is. And Tim Draper, another well-known Bitcoin advocate, he agrees with that $250,000 target.
Wow, so both Lee and Draper, despite their different approaches to analysis, they've arrived at the same prediction.
Yeah, it's compelling, right?
It speaks to a growing consensus about Bitcoin's long-term potential.
For sure. And they're not the only ones. Standard Chartered predicts $200,000. And then you have Cathie Wood, always the optimist.
She's a true believer.
She is. She's projecting $500,000 by October 2025.
Wow.
I know, right? Those are some serious numbers. And the influencer even hinted at, there's some crazy stuff happening behind the scenes that could be driving these bullish predictions.
I'm intrigued.
Me too. Speaking of behind the scenes, let's talk about institutions. They're gobbling up Bitcoin like it's going out of style. MicroStrategy, the company with that Bitcoin-heavy treasury, They bought the equivalent of 1.6 years worth of Bitcoin mining output in just a couple of months.
Wow, that's aggressive.
It is.
That kind of accumulation by institutional players, I mean, it's definitely a major factor behind Bitcoin's price surge. It seems like more and more companies are recognizing Bitcoin as a legitimate store of value, so that the demand just keeps increasing.
Supply and demand, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And that puts pressure on that limited supply, creating potentially a supply squeeze that could further drive up prices.
It's a fascinating dynamic for
Mm.
sure. And the influencer, they pointed to three major trends to watch in 2025. More companies adopting Bitcoin as a treasury reserve, nations showing increasing interest in Bitcoin, and more traditional financial institutions entering the crypto game.
Those are some major trends, and I think they all point to a potential paradigm shift in global finance, you know. Bitcoin, it went from being dismissed as a fringe asset to now being seriously considered by major players.
It's like the whole financial system is being reimagined in real time.
It is, and it's really exciting to see how this all unfolds. I mean, imagine the ripple effects if this trend continues. It could reshape how we think about money and investments on a global scale.
No kidding. It's definitely a space worth paying attention to. But let's zoom in a bit and look at some of the underlying dynamics influencing Bitcoin's trajectory, right? Like the on-chain data reveals some interesting insights, particularly about the behavior of long-term holders, those who've held their Bitcoin through thick and thin.
Yeah, those seasoned veterans.
Yeah, the data shows that long-term holders actually reduced their Bitcoin holdings in 2024, going from controlling 71% of the total supply down to 61%.
So are they losing faith in
I think
Bitcoin?
that was my first thought, right? It seems counterintuitive after such a strong year.
It does, but the data suggests otherwise. Historically, long-term holders, they retain at least 54% of their Bitcoin, even during, market peaks. So their strategy seems to be one of calculated selling.
So they're taking some profits, but maintaining a significant position. They're playing the long game.
Exactly. They're not jumping ship at the first sign of volatility.
That's good to know. But who's buying the Bitcoin that these long-term holders are selling? Where's it going?
Interestingly, two major players absorbed most of that Bitcoin,
Yeah.
MicroStrategy, as we mentioned earlier, and another unnamed firm.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So this suggests that even as some long-term holders are taking profits, institutional demand remains, very strong, potentially offsetting any downward pressure on price.
So it's like a changing of the guard almost, with institutions picking up the torch from those early adopters.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic for sure.
Now, miners, they're another crucial piece of this whole puzzle. What's the story there?
Okay, so miners, they're the backbone of the Bitcoin network, right? They're responsible for validating transactions, securing the system, and in return, they receive newly minted Bitcoin.
Right.
But the data reveals a surprising trend. Miner reserves are almost completely depleted.
Whoa, depleted. Does it mean they're like running out of Bitcoin to mine?
No, not exactly. It's important to remember that the total supply of Bitcoin is capped at 21 million. The issue is the amount of Bitcoin that miners currently hold in reserve. They've been selling their Bitcoin throughout the year to cover operational costs.
So they're essentially converting their Bitcoin holdings into working capital.
Yeah, to keep the mining operations running.
Does that put them in a vulnerable position?
It's a valid concern. And if you remember, Marathon, the mining company we mentioned earlier, they've been actively buying up a large portion of the Bitcoin sold by other miners. So
So it's like everyone's trying to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible.
it seems that way. The competition is heating up.
It is. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a major development that really shook the market in 2024. The launch of the Bitcoin Spot ETF.
Oh, yeah, that was a big one.
It was.
It was a game changer. I mean, it opened the floodgates for a wider range of investors to gain exposure to Bitcoin, including, retail investors, institutional investors, even pension funds. It's a major step towards mainstream adoption.
So it's like Bitcoin finally got its ticket to the big leagues of finance.
Yeah,
It's not more like shady exchanges or complicated wallets.
Well, there are still, nuances to navigate, but the ETF definitely simplifies the process for a lot of investors.
For sure. And the numbers are telling. Just 7 firms offering Bitcoin ETFs have already accumulated a combined $14 billion in assets under management.
Wow.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge influx of capital. What's driving this wave of investment through ETFs?
Well, one factor is the growing acceptance of Bitcoin as a legitimate asset class, right? We're seeing firms like BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, recommending allocations to Bitcoin as part of a diversified portfolio. So this creates a consistent stream of buying pressure as more investors follow their advice.
So it's like an automatic investment plan for Bitcoin,
Yeah.
fueled by these institutional recommendations.
Yeah, it's a powerful force.
It is. Now, this next prediction from our influencer, this is where things get really interesting, even a bit mind-boggling. They bring up the possibility of Bretton Woods 3, a new global monetary system backed by Bitcoin.
Okay, Bretton Woods 3, that's a bold concept.
It is. And our influencer acknowledges that, it's not a guaranteed outcome, but it's a scenario worth exploring,
Right.
especially given the shifting dynamics of global finance.
Right.
Essentially, it would involve the incoming U.S. president incorporating Bitcoin as part of a new framework for stabilizing global currencies.
So instead of the US dollar being the sole world reserve currency, it would be backed by a basket of assets, including Bitcoin.
Yeah, potentially. That's a pretty radical departure from the current system.
Yeah, it is. It would also be a significant departure from historical precedents, you know? Like think about Bretton Woods 1, which relied on a gold-backed US dollar, and then Bretton Woods 2, which moved away from gold to a fiat currency system. Adding Bitcoin to the mix could potentially create a more stable and resilient monetary system, but it would require a fundamental rethinking of global financial structures.
It's a fascinating idea, although I'm still trying to wrap my head around how
Yeah.
realistic it is. It sounds almost like something out of science fiction.
Our influencer puts the chances of this happening at around 30 to 40%, so it's not a far-fetched idea, but not a certainty either.
Okay.
But even the possibility has huge implications for Bitcoin's value. If a major government were to adopt Bitcoin as a reserve asset, it would be a powerful signal of legitimacy to the world.
I can see that. Okay, let's move on to another intriguing trend our influencer highlights. Float financing for Bitcoin. What exactly does that entail?
Okay, so in essence, float financing allows investors to borrow against their Bitcoin holdings without having to sell them. It's a common practice in traditional finance, and it's now making its way into the crypto world.
So you're basically using your Bitcoin as collateral for a loan.
Exactly.
This seems like it could be a game changer for Bitcoin holders.
It is. It's quite significant for a couple of reasons. First, it enhances liquidity for Bitcoin holders, right? They can access capital without having to sell their Bitcoin, which could trigger a taxable event.
Right, right. So they get to keep their Bitcoin and access capital at the same time.
Exactly. Win-win.
What's the other big advantage?
Well, it also makes Bitcoin more attractive to institutional investors. Traditional financial institutions, they're more comfortable lending against assets they understand, and Bitcoin is increasingly becoming an asset class they're willing to work with.
So it's like Bitcoin is gaining that institutional grade status,
Exactly.
which could attract even more investment from the big players.
Precisely. And there's one more benefit that the influencer points out, and that's its potential contribution to price stability.
Okay, how so?
Because since borrowers don't have to sell their Bitcoin to access capital, it reduces that downward pressure on the market.
Makes sense. Makes sense. It's like creating a more stable foundation for Bitcoin's growth.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground already, and there's still so much more to unpack.
Yeah.
I'm particularly curious about Solana's rise and the whole meme coin phenomenon.
Yeah, those are definitely topics worth exploring further.
We're going to need a whole other deep dive for that.
We will. We'll delve into those and other intriguing trends after a quick break. Stay with us.
Welcome back. So before the break, we were deep in the world of Bitcoin, exploring its remarkable performance and all those forces shaping its future. But the crypto landscape is vast, right? It's diverse. There's a lot going on. So let's shift our focus to another player that's really making waves, Solana. Yeah, Solana definitely caught my eye on the data. It's handling a crazy amount of transactions, like 68% of all crypto transactions globally.
It's a lot.
That's almost 5 billion transactions just in Q4 alone. It's mind-boggling.
It is, and it seems like Solana is becoming the go-to platform for a wide range of applications, from DeFi and NFTs to gaming and all those Web3 initiatives.
It's becoming a real hub of activity.
It is, and this surge in transaction volume really aligns with a core idea our influencer emphasizes: the connection between a blockchain's utility and its overall value.
So it's not just hype. There's real-world usage driving Solana's growth.
Exactly, and its price performance, it reflects that. It's up over 100% year to date, making it one of the top performers in the market.
This definitely makes me want to learn more about Solana and what's happening on that platform.
It's definitely one to watch. Now let's pivot to a phenomenon that I think we all kind of enjoyed watching: the meme coin craze. Those are the surprise stars of 2024, wouldn't you say?
They really were. I mean, those returns were eye-popping. The influencer mentioned average returns of 100 to 200% for meme coins in 2024.
It's incredible.
But I'm curious, how much of the market do these meme coins actually represent? Are they really as significant as the hype might suggest?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's where perspective becomes really crucial. While those returns are undeniably impressive, meme coins still constitute a pretty small portion of the overall crypto market cap, only about 2.4%.
Okay, so it's a bit like a sideshow, a small but entertaining part of the larger crypto circuit.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy.
It's fun to watch, maybe even, dip your toes in a little bit, but probably not the foundation of a serious investment strategy.
Exactly. I think it's important to approach meme coin investments with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Hmm.
And the influencer even has a great saying about this: if it's pumped hard, it's probably a scam.
Oh, I like that.
While there might be exceptions, it's wise to remember that meme coin popularity is often driven by, social media trends and online communities, not necessarily fundamental value or real world utility.
It's a good reminder to always do your own research.
Yeah.
Understand the motivations behind any investment you make, especially in the crypto world.
Absolutely. Now let's zoom out a bit and explore some broader trends that our influencer identified. Trends that I think have implications not just for the financial world, but for society as a whole. One of the things they brought up was the decline of ESG and DEI as dominant investment themes.
Yeah, I saw that. It's a complex and potentially controversial topic.
It is, and the influencer suggests that we might be seeing a shift away from these politically charged frameworks towards a renewed emphasis on meritocracy.
So are we moving toward an investment landscape where performance and results take center stage rather than focusing on meeting like specific social or political criteria?
That's one interpretation, and it will be fascinating to see how this trend evolves. But of course, it's important to acknowledge that there are diverse perspectives on this issue. It's not a black and white situation.
It's a reminder that the world of finance is never just about numbers.
Yeah,
There are always these social and political currents at play.
absolutely. Now, this next trend is one I'm particularly interested in: the rise of independent media, something we're deeply connected to with this show.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we see every day, right? The influencer observes declining viewership for mainstream media and a growing appetite for independent outlets and podcasts. This shift suggests a desire for alternative perspectives, a distrust of those traditional gatekeepers of information.
Yeah, people are craving authenticity. They want diverse voices and in-depth analysis, and they're finding it outside the confines of traditional media.
It's an exciting time to be a part of this evolving media landscape, that's for sure. What else did the influencer highlight in terms of these broader trends?
Well, it's impossible to ignore the AI revolution that's unfolding around us. The influencer emphasizes the transformative potential of AI and its ability to disrupt multiple industries. I mean, it's already happening.
And no conversation about AI would be complete without mentioning Elon Musk. He's been making some bold moves in the AI space.
He has. The influencer specifically points to Musk's acquisition of a massive number of NVIDIA's H100 and B200 AI chips. This gives him, significant computing power for AI development, potentially putting him in a position to challenge even giants like Microsoft and their ChatGPT.
So it's like an AI arms race with the biggest players vying for dominance.
It does feel that way sometimes.
Yeah. And Musk isn't limiting himself to software either. He's also investing heavily in Tesla's self-driving technology and humanoid robots like Optimus. How do those ventures connect with his AI ambitions?
Well, the influencer believes these investments will create like powerful synergies with Musk's AI capabilities. Imagine, self-driving cars powered by advanced AI or humanoid robots capable of learning and adapting to complex tasks. It's a vision of a future where AI permeates nearly every aspect of our lives.
It's exciting and a little bit daunting, to be honest.
It is, and the influencer even mentioned a prediction that AI will surpass human intelligence by 2030 or perhaps even sooner.
That's a prediction that sparks both hope and concern.
It does. It's a call to action for all of us to engage in thoughtful conversations about the ethical implications of AI and to prepare for a future where machines may play an even more prominent role in our lives.
And that future is approaching rapidly. Now, before we get too carried away with visions of AI-powered robots, our influencer did highlight a couple of pieces of ugly news we should be aware of. What do they point to?
Okay, so they mentioned upcoming token unlocks for several crypto projects, including Suni and others. These unlocks can potentially impact market prices as large amounts of tokens suddenly become available for trading.
Right. It's like a sudden influx of supply that could disrupt the balance of the market.
Exactly. The other piece of ugly news the influencer highlighted was the Federal Reserve's ongoing struggle to control inflation.
Ah, yes, the Fed. Always a source of uncertainty.
Always. And they specifically mention Jerome Powell's resistance to auditing the Fed and the ongoing debate over interest rates and their impact on the economy. It seems like there's no easy solution to taming inflation. And then the Fed's actions will continue to be, closely watched by investors and policymakers alike.
It sounds like 2025 could be another roller coaster year for the markets.
I think that's a safe bet.
While we've seen, remarkable growth and innovation in 2024, there are definitely challenges and uncertainties on the horizon. What other insights did the influencer share about potential headwinds or areas of concern for 2025?
They touched on the potential for a U.S. debt default. It's a complex issue, obviously, with a lot of political wrangling involved. But the influencer believes it's a real risk that investors should be aware of.
A U.S. debt default. That sounds, pretty catastrophic. What would the implications of that be, not just for the U.S., but for the global economy?
It's hard to predict the exact fallout, but it would likely trigger a significant financial crisis, potentially even a global recession.
Yeah.
The U.S. dollar's role as the world's reserve currency would be called into question, and there could be a flight to alternative assets, including perhaps Bitcoin.
So it's a scenario with potentially huge ramifications for the financial system as we know it.
It is, yeah.
What are the chances of this actually happening?
The influencer didn't assign a specific probability to it, but they emphasize that it's not a negligible risk.
Okay.
It'll depend on political negotiations and the willingness of different parties to compromise.
Right, right. It's definitely something to keep an eye on as the situation develops. Now, stepping back from those potential storm clouds for a moment, what are some key takeaways from this whole deep dive that our listeners should keep in mind as they navigate the financial landscape in 2025? What are like the big things they should be thinking about?
Well, I think one of the most important themes that emerges from all this data is the increasing prominence of alternative assets like Bitcoin. We're seeing growing adoption by institutions, nations, and potentially even governments. This shift challenges traditional financial structures and creates, new opportunities for investors.
Like a whole new financial frontier is opening up.
It is.
And along with that comes a need for new knowledge and strategies, right? What advice would you give to someone who's trying to make sense of all this and make informed investment decisions in this new landscape?
I'd echo the influencer's emphasis on continuous learning and research. Stay informed about emerging trends, understand the underlying technologies, and don't be afraid to challenge conventional wisdom.
Yeah, don't just follow the herd, right? Do your own digging, develop your own understanding of this evolving landscape. Any other parting thoughts for our listeners as we wrap up this New Year's Eve deep dive?
I think the overarching message here is one of cautious optimism. We're living in a time of unprecedented technological and financial transformation. And with that comes, both immense potential and significant risks. By staying informed, adaptable, and open to new possibilities, we can navigate these uncharted waters and potentially benefit from the opportunities that lie ahead.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I think that's the perfect note to end on. As we step into a new year, let's embrace the challenges and opportunities with curiosity, resilience, and a commitment to continuous learning. Thank you all for joining us on this epic exploration of the crypto and financial landscape. Happy New Year, everyone.